Good evening, friends. I am just about done with my lunch break. I'm at work, obviously, in my car. I apologize for being wet. I worked outside today, and it's been raining pretty steadily, and I am getting appropriately watered. The topic for today is perfectionism, but before I do that, I wanted to share a little bit about managing life with a chronic illness. And this right here is lithium. This is a 600 milligram capsule. I take 600 at night and I take 900 in the morning. I'm currently on a very high dose of lithium. My lithium blood level is 0.08, I forget, I apologize. But it's maxed out. It's at the highest level that it's supposed to be. For acute mania, it can be up to 1.2, but you definitely don't want to have that much lithium in your blood for a long period of time because it is a toxic substance in high doses. It is an element on the periodic table. It is both a metal, an alkali metal, and a salt, like sodium. And in order to take this medication safely, you have to get regular blood work to make sure that your lithium levels are within what's called a therapeutic range. And while you are taking this medication, you are supposed to take lots of water, which is always good, but especially if you take lithium, consuming lots of water is very important. Especially as it gets warmer, and especially if you're going to be physically active. Water will keep your lithium levels stable and will keep them from rising to the point of causing toxicity. Toxicity is life-threatening. If you think you may have lithium toxicity, you need to go to the emergency room. And I'd love to do a video more about that if you would like. But, so tonight, I'm taking my nighttime dose of lithium. And earlier today, I had signs of a migraine, and I take sumatriptan for that. It's part of a drug class called triptans. And it works on serotonin receptors, and it diminishes pain signals traveling along your nerves. And in my case, sumatriptan is incredibly effective at reducing pain. The pain is completely gone. No matter how severe the pain is, it is completely gone in 30 to 45 minutes of ingestion. If it does not work in that time, that's when I would go to the ER. But, can't talk. Sumatriptan is super effective at reducing pain. It also works at reducing nausea. You may need additional medication for the nausea, you may not. But unfortunately, sumatriptan has its side effects. And for me, I get this feeling like my body weighs. It's just packed full of lead. It weighs 1,000 pounds, and every movement feels like hard labor. I also get wicked hot flashes. Like, I'm too young for this shit. I'm too young for the hot flashes, man. Why am I getting those? But apparently hot flashes and cold sensations are very common with sumatriptan. And you will very likely have an intense brain fog and sense of sluggishness if you take it, which I'd rather have that than have the pain and the nausea. But having to work after taking sumatriptan, especially if you have to work outside when it's hot, it's just a nightmare. It just guarantees that my day is gonna suck. But once that kind of fades, an interesting thing happens. You start to get very hungry. I get so hungry after sumatriptan. Like, I could eat anything. I could eat car parts with gravy. I don't care what it is. I get so hungry. And that's how you know that you're going to be okay. So that's what I dealt with today. And now I want to talk about perfectionism. We all know what perfectionism means. There is a colloquial meaning and there is a clinical meaning, and they're relatively similar. It's not settling for any less than perfection, wanting to look or appear perfect or be perfect. It's very, very simple. And a lot of people will describe themselves as perfectionist in a way that sort of reveals pride. Like, their drawings are very detailed, their house is very neat and very well decorated. Their emails have immaculate spelling and grammar, and that is okay to do. That is a correct use of the word perfectionistic. However, there is a clinical meaning that illustrates something very different. And in our culture, where we have sort of blended personality traits with mental health symptoms, and they've kind of become one and the same, it's hard to tell the difference. But perfectionism in a mental health context could be something like, they are very neat and organized, and they love to clean, but they never, ever, ever finish the task because it's never perfect. It has become pathological for them. And this is even worse. This is what I struggle with. I'm so perfectionistic, I don't even start. If I have a large project and I know I'm not going to be able to do a good job in the amount of time that I have, I just won't do it because it's not going to be good enough. And I'm going to spend an enormous amount of labor picking apart the details, and it's just going to be a very stressful experience, and in the end, it's just not going to get done. Something else that I have struggled with, and I struggled with this very, very early on in life, like as early as 7 is when I first remembered it, is I have selective perfectionism. Growing up, I was a hoarder, and I still am a hoarder. I'll talk about that some other time. But there was one corner of my room that had all my Chinese culture artifacts. And that part of my room had to be perfectly aligned within a certain sequence of squares. I would spend hours shifting and twirling and shifting each item so it would be in its exact correct spot. And I couldn't stop doing it. And it would just be that one corner of the room. The rest of my room was a disaster. The rest of my room was covered in piles of toys and random trash and food. I didn't care about that, but that one corner had to be perfect. And you'll see this with OCD a lot. One corner of the kitchen has to be perfectly clean and germ-free, while the rest of the kitchen rots. So that is what perfectionism looks like in the clinical setting, if you're talking about an OCD condition or an anxiety condition, it could be a personality disorder in some cases, although I don't think that's super common. But it's just like anything else. A lot of these traits are perfectly normal and adaptive in small quantities. But if you put them in other contexts and you blow them up to the point where it becomes a defining feature of your life, that's when you know that you have a problem that requires some kind of treatment. And it's hard to seek support for a problem like perfectionism because people universally see perfectionism as a good thing. They're like, why would you want to stop doing that? That's so good. You must be so good in school. You must have such a clean house. You must have this. No. And I want you to understand the difference between the subclinical or the colloquial perfectionism versus the clinical perfectionism. And if somebody comes to you saying that they're struggling with perfectionism, I really want you to believe them. Don't assume that this is a good thing or that you would want the same thing. Trust me, if you had the kind of perfectionism that I'm talking about, you would not want it. You would not want anything to do with it. It can and it does actually literally ruin lives. So that's all I have for today. I hope this was educational. Feel free to ask any questions, and I hope you guys have an amazing and hopefully dry night.